Well, it's Friday, December the 15th, 2023. Welcome to Let's Talk on WIN TV, Washington Informer News. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, and I hope you've had a chance to pick up a copy of this week's Washington Informer. You know, I always like to show you all the printed edition of the Informer. Again, we hit the streets on Thursday, and so I hope you've had a chance to pick up a copy of the print edition. I think we've knocked it out the park with some great local stories about things happening in the DMV, and it's what we call news you can use. So make sure you get a copy. We're around 600 locations in the DMV, and in this issue is our quarterly health, wellness, and nutrition supplement. You know, we do this 4 times a year. So you want to pick this up as well, not to make you do something that you might do differently during the holidays, but to remind you of the things that we need to be doing every day of the year to stay healthy and strong. And I would always like to thank our health editor, Linda Way Valakazi, for pulling that together, as well as our editor, Misha Green. If you haven't gotten a copy of the print edition, you know, you can always read the digital edition online at washingtoninformer.com. There you can not only see the newspaper, but you can also sign up to receive the digital edition and all of the other news and information that we send out daily at washingtoninformer.com. So I invite you personally, Denise is inviting you to sign up to become a part of the Washington Informer family. And you can do that at our website, again, washingtoninformer.com. While you're watching today, we certainly would love for you to click like if you like what you're seeing, and also to share this broadcast on all of your social media platforms. It's important, we believe, to try to get the information out. We have great guests on the show, and today's show is no exception. So we want to make sure that you share the broadcast and follow us on IG, on X, formerly known as Twitter, Threads, Nextdoor, YouTube, and we also have a LinkedIn. What do you call it? We're also on LinkedIn, I'll put it that way. So, you know, you can follow us there as it relates to news that we share with our LinkedIn community. But when you go to YouTube, we are asking you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want you to like it. Of course, that's great, but subscribe as well. And our YouTube channel is Washington Informer TV, no spaces, just Washington Informer TV. So I invite you to be a part of our family, to do one or all of the things that I just suggested. And we look forward to sharing great news and information from the DMV, from the Black community, from the Washington Informer. Our first segment today is sponsored by AARP DC. And full disclosure, I am a member of AARP and AARP DC. So I welcome those of you all who qualify, and Lewis Davis will tell us how many of us actually qualify. We don't have to be a certain age now to be a member of AARP DC or AARP in general. So we're really looking forward to talking to them. And Lewis Davis is the DC State Director for AARP DC. He's going to be joined by Dr. Christopher King, Associate Professor for Health Management and Policy and Dean of the School of Health at Georgetown University. Mr. Davis and Dr. King will update us on a groundbreaking report examining health disparities in the District of Columbia. After that, we will talk to Dr. Willie J. Greer Kimmons, author of a parenting guidebook. It's called the Parenting Guidebook, the roles of schools, family, teachers, local, state, and federal government in assisting parents in rearing their children. Great information. We're looking for a really, really important conversation because as we look to addressing so many of the problems that are impacting our community, particularly our families and our children, I believe that Dr. Greer Kimmons has some ideas and recommendations that we should take with us and maybe look into as we get into the new year. And finally, we take a delightful tour or detour to the Southeast North Pole. Yes, I said the Southeast North Pole, where we'll have a conversation with the Southeast Santa, who will talk to us about his centuries-long dedication to spreading happiness, his secrets behind seamless logistics, and heartwarming tales from his countless Christmas adventures. Yes, Southeast Santa is going to be with us, and so we look forward to having that conversation. So before we turn to our AARP DC sponsored segment, let's watch this week's news broadcast by Curtis Knowles.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has greenlit 2 revolutionary cell-based gene therapies, Casgevy and Lyfgenia, marking a significant leap forward in treating sickle cell disease for patients aged 12 and older. Casgevy is a groundbreaking cell-based gene therapy and is the first FDA-approved treatment employing CRISPR, or Cas9, a revolutionary genome editing technology. The therapy is for individuals 12 and older who have recurrent vaso-occlusive crises, and it changes the patient's hematopoietic stem using the technology that can precisely edit DNA. The approval by the FDA signifies the commencement of a novel epoch in managing sickle cell disease and providing optimism to individuals whose lives have been significantly disrupted by the arduous condition. D.C. Mayor Bowser and D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson are uniting in a last-ditch effort to keep the Washington Wizards and Washington Capitals in the district, with legislation that supports the renovation and modernization of the Capital One Arena. If passed, the legislation, titled the Downtown Arena Modernization and Downtown Revitalization Act of 2023, will infuse $500 million into the creation of an arena that public officials hope will attract economic activity to the downtown D.C. area at large. The Bowser administration announced the legislation on Tuesday evening, just hours before Ted Leonis, CEO of Monumental Sports and Entertainment and majority owner of both Washington Capitals and the Washington Wizards, announced the teams will move from the Capital One Arena to Potomac Yard in Alexandria, Virginia. Leaders in the D.C. region reacted with alarm Tuesday following the budget announcement from Metro that there would be steep cuts on the way, including the potential closure of 10 Metro stations due to a $750 million deficit. The cuts would result in the Metro rail service ending at 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Fewer trains would run, increasing the wait time for most trains to 15 minutes during the week and 20 minutes on the weekend. D.C. Councilmember Charles Allen, who chairs the Transportation Committee, commented saying, quote, "The clock is ticking and there needs to be a solution soon." Avoiding cuts is possible, according to the Metro General Manager, Randy Clark, but it would take Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. bringing in a combined $663 million in additional funding to the table.
Thank you, Curtis. Great news. And I know that everyone is having conversations about this, the situation or the status of what may or may not happen with the Capitals, the Mystics and the Wizards, and that potential move from Capital One to Potomac Yard. We hope, we'll be talking more about that in the days to come, and the impact that it'll have on the city, especially east of the river in Ward 8, where the new entertainment sports arena has been up and running for a couple of years. It's the practice field for the practice venue for the Wizards and the home venue for the Mystics. I think some folks are really concerned about what that might mean to Ward 8, but overall in the District of Columbia. So we're going to talk more about that in the weeks to come as the news evolves. We also had a story on our website about that, and we will be doing more reporting in the Washington Informer. So we hope that we not only report, but that we hear from you about your thoughts and ideas and impressions. You can share information, as I said, on our social media channels. You can email us at news@washingtoninformer.com if you have some comments or feedback about this measure. And, at the same time, we're trying to get the Commanders to come back to the District of Columbia. So it's a lot going on with sports in the DMV, and DC is the central part of all of that. So since all those teams carry the name Washington, so we'll see what happens as we move forward. Now we're going to turn to our AARP sponsored segment of our program today. But before we talk to our guests, let's watch this video.
16 years from today, Greg Gerstner will finally land the perfect cannonball. Unsuspecting friends? Check. Epic water displacement? Big check. A work of art that's only possible because Greg is already meeting all these same people at AARP volunteer and community events. They'll keep Greg active, involved, and mischievous, and help make sure his happiness lives as long as he does. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP.
Well, thank you. I love that commercial. Greg is, I need to meet Greg. He's a character. But anyway, welcome Louis Davis Jr., DC State Director for AARP DC, and Dr. Christopher King, Associate Professor for Health Management and Policy and Dean of the School of Health at Georgetown University. Welcome to Let's Talk.
Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I like that commercial, Davis and Louis. I know we're not talking about that, but that's pretty cool. It's funny, actually. I never realized how funny it was until I just saw it just now. I've seen it many times, but Greg's a character.
Greg is a character, and it's a reminder that the younger you are, the more you really do need AARP. And you want to stay frisky and as active as Greg and playful as Greg is being in that video. That's what's behind that.
Before we go to, turn to our real topic, though, I've always loved hearing you talk about who qualifies to be a member of AARP. So can I get you to share that with the audience first, and then we'll talk about the study that you all have invested in.
Sure. So we are AARP. We began as the National Association of Retired Persons, but we, for nearly 20 years now, moved away from that tagline. That's no longer even part of our legal name. We are simply AARP. And a large reason being that people live longer. We are 67 years old. And so the world around us has changed. Luckily and happily, people are living longer. So a lot of our members, in fact, most of our members are working. So the retired part needed to kind of fall back and fall away. But our mission is the same, and it is to help people live their best lives at every decade of their lives. And to your part of your question, there's no membership requirement age at 50. Despite the fun time people have about turning 50 and getting that message in the mail at 48, you can join AARP in your late teens. And we have quite a few members who are way younger than 50 who join, and they do so because of the great resources and information we have that they need to live their lives. They might be someone in their 30s or 40s providing caregiving services to someone who is much older. So they benefit from reading our resources online and participating in our programs that we do here in the District of Columbia. So yeah. So that don't tear up the envelope when it comes to you at the age of 48. Know that it's a badge to get to 48 and 50, and that there are people 28 and 35 who join.
And that's when I joined at 48. So it's been a great ride. But in addition to all of the, when people think of AARP, they always think of the benefits and being able to get discounts and what have you. But you all really invest in some serious activities that impact older Americans still. And one was this study that you did in the spring of 2021, looking at the health disparities of, I believe, older Americans or older adults here in the District of Columbia. And you have since updated that study. Can you tell us, Louis, why you and AARP DC convened the report, and maybe touch on a couple of highlights?
Certainly. And our partner in doing that is here. Professor King will delve further into the report. But the why, my decision as director of AARP DC to embark on this. But the grounding for that, the foundation for that is the history of AARP. AARP began to address a retired educator in California who had fallen on hard times and could not afford her health care. So we have had the provision and access to quality, affordable health care in our DNA from our very beginning. So that has not changed. And we do that through our advocacy work at the local level and here in the Wilson Building in the District of Columbia, in state houses, at the national level in Congress, all across the country as well. And that's our bread and butter. So we are at bottom an advocacy organization and a membership organization that helps fuel that advocacy to help people live their best lives. And it's hard to live your best life if you can't do that in a healthy way. It's not simply about longevity, but living well. So we want people to not simply live longer, but to live well longer in each of those decades. And so our advocacy work is unending. And we do have fun, though, as you saw Greg having in the swimming pool. And so we engage our members in all varieties of ways here in the District of Columbia through all types of outreach and program services. We do that in as many ways as we can to keep our members engaged, and non-members, I should add. The advocacy work we do is not just for AARP members. It is for anybody who might benefit from those services here in DC.
Thank you. Dr. King, again, looking at this study, I mean, why did Georgetown agree to embark on this study? And can you give us some highlights, some critical issues that you all discovered in doing the study?
Sure. Thank you, Denise. So at the School of Health, Georgetown University, we are really dedicated to increasing our footprint in the District of Columbia and getting to the root cause of poor health. We are really exhausted of talking about these disparities. We really need to do some heavy lifting and make change happen. So the purpose of the report is to amplify some of the most stark disparities that we see in Black older adults in our city. And because we know that health is shaped mostly by the conditions in which we live, learn, work, and play, this report delves also into socioeconomic disparities. So what do we know? We know that first, when we compare cities, when DC is compared to cities across the country, it's a very healthy city. DC is a very healthy city. In fact, according to the American Fitness Index, we're number 2 in the country when it comes to the most fit city. But when you stratify data by race and ethnicity, it's a very dark, dark story to be told. For example, older Black adults in wards 5, 7, and 8 are more likely to be hospitalized for a preventable condition. And deaths due to diabetes is 8 times higher in Black older adults, which may help explain why we observed high volumes of disability in older Black residents in the city. And while cancer survival rates are improving just broadly, older Black adults are more likely to die from breast, prostate, colorectal, and lung cancer. And as far as socioeconomic conditions, the number of older Black adults with incomes below the federal poverty level is 5 times higher than white residents. And that's around $14,000 a year in income. And more than 50% of older adults live alone. And we look at that measure because it's important. It's a proxy for social isolation. And we know that older adults who are socially isolated are more likely to experience depression. We know they're more likely to have a hospital readmission and generally just to disengage from society. And this is especially salient for this population because the community has told us that DC's changing very rapidly and it's becoming unrecognizable. But there are a few things I want us to celebrate, all right? 96% of older Black adults have health insurance. Black women between the ages of 15 and 74, they are getting their mammograms. In fact, they outpace all other racial and ethnic groups. And older Black adults have the lowest rates of deaths due to oral and laryngeal cancer. Now, in this report, we do capture disparities by race, but I just want to remind us all that race is a social construct. These disparities are not caused by a biological difference. Instead, they are the outcome of centuries of systemic racism that disproportionately burden and psychologically traumatize Black residents.
That's I'm glad you contrasted the unpleasant news with the good news, and particularly when it comes to breast cancer screenings, I mean that sounds like we've moved the needle in that regard, and so that's good news to hear. But I'm wondering, so this study was originally done in 2021. And I know from AARP DC's perspective, Louis, that's where you all come in and actually kind of push public policy as it relates to the outcomes or the messages that come out of the study. But I'm just wondering if there's a comparison, Dr. King, between where we are today and maybe where we were 5, 6, 10 years ago, or is there a comparison?
Yeah, we did look for that. We were able to see some, diabetes death rate has increased. When we did it initially, it was 6 times higher. Now we're at 8 times higher. So obviously, you're going to see disability increase in older Black adults. We also observed that heart disease increase just broadly across the city. But the good news is we see more people receiving heart disease treatment. So that's good. As far as COVID, because this question comes up quite a bit, what did COVID do? What did we learn from COVID? We can only partially answer that question because we do not have all of the data. Public health data takes time for us to get that information. Usually it's like 3 to 5 years, depending on the measure we're looking at. And so we're not able to fully contextualize the impact of COVID on Black and Brown communities in the District of Columbia. So we do highlight that as something we want to continue to take a look at over time.
One more question before I go back to Louis, though, because so lifespan, you may have said that for Black Americans, for Black DC residents, is it getting longer? Are we living longer?
There's a 15-year difference in life expectancy when we compare, for example, Ward 3 and Ward 8, 15 years, right? Now, COVID, we do know this nationally, life expectancy has actually declined, just nationwide.
Okay, I thought it was just the opposite. That's why I was asking.
No, COVID was a blip, right? And so that set us back. And so we do see that in Black and Brown communities, we were hit harder when it comes to a lower life expectancy.
Yeah, and I guess I asked that question because, I mean, we are celebrating so many 90, and Louis knows that, so many birthdays who are individuals in DC, men and women, but mostly women who are reaching 90, 100. We just celebrated Mrs. Ali's birthday yesterday, last night, turning 90, full, very energetic. Hopefully, prayerfully, she'll be around with us for many more years. So it just appears as though people are living longer, but clearly you're saying that's not the case.
No, that's not the case.
Okay. All right. So as it relates to the results of the study, Louis, where does AARP fit in here? Are there any public policy initiatives that you all are coming with to address the results of the study?
Sure. So we're talking about this study that Professor King did because I commissioned he to do so. So it was our intent to get some professional assistance and collecting data unique to DC. We have great policy experts of our own inside AARP. We wanted to get some data collected right here in the District of Columbia to come alongside more national data that we have. And to Dr. King's comments made earlier, some of the advocacy we'll be doing in 24. I spoke to at-large council member Christina Henderson just last night at our roundtable, is that AARP will be looking for ways to work with the DC Committee on Health that she chairs to disrupt what appears to be this lag or speed up. What Professor King mentioned is this lag in capturing data. Some of that is simply it's baked into the cake, but we want to make sure that DC Health and the Committee on Equity and the commission that DC Health oversees are doing what they can to collect this data from local providers. Maybe there are some ways we can provide additional incentives, maybe break up some bureaucratic log jams in getting that data because it's so important. But our intent, beginning almost 3 years ago, was to focus on Black men and women age 40 and older. So this study, there are health disparities that might be experienced, for example, by elder Latinos here in the District of Columbia, and we acknowledge that. This study, for your viewers and listeners, was purposefully looking at Black men and women 40 and older, and their families and communities. So that's your audience should know that. Our intent is to, in 24, as I spoke to Councilwoman Henderson last night, is to work with our committee in examining policy to look at the data collection and, as importantly, what's done with that data. We also want to make sure that the district, as Professor King mentioned, we do well. If we were a state, we're way up there with 96% of people insured. And we did that before there was Obamacare. We were already doing really well with insuring people. But as we heard last night, and as Dr. King's report suggests as well, having health insurance is not the same thing as getting quality health care. So we'll be looking for ways to work with DC Health on that going forward. We're going to be doing a variety of things. Look for us to be around the city in more public forums and social media, and highlighting what we can do, and what's being done well in the District of Columbia. We have a lot of great programs and services, but not enough people know about them always. And so we're going to push on DC Health and the executive branch, DC Health is the executive branch and the council, to do a better job in oversight on DC Health and other agencies, Department of Aging and Community Living being one of them, and doing a better job of promoting the services that they already have.
It's ironic almost or coincidental that I talked about our quarterly health supplement. We're all kind of trying to do what we can to, like I said, move the needle and help our people to live, like you said, Louis, longer, but not just live longer, but to live healthier, more vibrant lives. And it does sound a little strange to me that while so many of us now, our numbers are great, they always have been since, before other states, to have more people signed up to have health insurance, but the health quality is not changed. It just seems a little interesting to me. And we can talk about that another time, or I don't know if we can talk about that now. I don't see. It's hard for me to understand if you now have health insurance and you have access, which was the big problem, that people didn't have access. Now I know when you look at Ward 8, for example, people always say that there are not enough primary care physicians here, so that's a problem. We've got a hospital, that's half closed, and another one that hasn't opened but will be soon. So I think those are conditions that maybe address why, this disparity still exists. But I still have questions about that. So, Louis, you want to?
Yeah, all those things you mentioned, Denise. They having health insurance and living too far from your primary care physician, because we don't want to mention ERs where people have to go to get primary care. So that's a problem right there. But if you're having to take a bus to get to the train, to get to one stop or two, to get to see a doctor, well, you're already disparaged, right? And there is a brand new hospital coming online east of the river. It's about time, but it's late, right? It'll be on time when it arrives, but it's late in coming. So all of that has to do with it certainly contributes to having inequitable access to healthcare. The other thing that came up last night, and this is mentioned in Dr. King's report as well, is the downward pressure that being unhoused or having housing insecurity has. It's very difficult to focus on one's health, for a woman to regularly know and receive her mammograms when she's struggling to pay rent, let alone if she's struggling to pay rent and has a household full of children. So those downward pressures on people being able to afford to live in the District of Columbia because of high rents or interest rates on their mortgage, or being able to afford their first home, has a lot to do with people's ability to focus their other energies on their own health and the health of their families around them.
So I would love for people to know, if they really wanted to delve into this study, can you tell us where they can find the study? I see we have a copy here. Could we could go to the website?
Yeah, if you go to aarp.org/DC, it'll take you to our AARP District of Columbia state page, and you'll find there on our website links there for Dr. King's study and our own survey we did in-house, where 538 district residents, Black men and women, answered a survey of our own just over the course of the last year. And they, in their own words, in answering these questions, tell us how they're doing. It wasn't a scientific study. It's a sample of 538 people, and it was not random. And we reached these persons at a variety of events around town where they were already going. So these are people who are active enough to get out to these events who took this survey. So that should be understood. We didn't visit or get the survey to people who may be homebound, for example. There also, if you follow us on social media, on Facebook and on X, formerly Twitter, at AARP.org or ARPDC, you can get access to the survey there as well.
So, Dr. King, what comes next? Now that you have completed the survey, updated it, is there still an ongoing study that's taking place, and can residents still participate?
Well, that would be up to AARP.
Okay, all right.
I was just commissioned to do the report.
Okay.
But I think that there's a lot that needs to be done. Folks need to get out, and they need to support policymakers who know these issues and they understand the conditions that impact health, that they recognize that we can't just focus on the healthcare delivery system. We have to think much more broad around community and what does a community look like and people's home environments, and do they have the infrastructure for healthy living? Because we can provide the best medical care in the world, but if people do not live in communities where they can thrive and achieve optimal health and well-being, we're not going to see a significant change in population health.
Right. Okay. And Lois, again, if folks are interested in maybe participating in future studies or giving their testimonials about experiences, is AARP still open to receiving that? And
absolutely. And to something Professor King mentioned, I want to harp on. A budget is a set of policies and numbers. And so come January, in fact, the executive branch is probably already working on their next fiscal budget for the District of Columbia. And if we were a state, we have a pretty large budget. We have a $17 billion budget. And I know in your earlier segment, you're talking about sports arenas. I hope we will give as much, in fact, more attention to helping Black people or any resident in Ward 8 get closer to living as long as our comrades and residents in Ward 3. In a city that's only 68 square miles across, it's inexplicable, although there are explainers, it's inexcusable that there's a 15-year life expectancy difference in a city just 68 square miles across, from two wards that are just a few miles apart from one another. So we have some work to do. We need to do a better job in connecting more people to the good programs and services we have, which contribute to some of the good news that Professor King shared at the top. But we have our work cut out for us, and the time for people to get involved, even if you are doing well and you have good access to good quality healthcare, you may know somebody here in the District of Columbia who does not. And I hope that you'll see them as a friend or neighbor and advocate on their behalf, and do that with AARP DC. You know how to reach us. I'm all around town. But you can reach us online at aarp.org/DC. You can reach me. I don't know if I'm able to give out my number, but you can find me by email and telephone numbers. All of our information is online, and we are always looking for people to help us in advocating for the council and the mayor to do the right thing by people 50 and older and their families.
Wonderful. I want to thank both of you all for being on today and sharing this information. You're right. We've got a lot of work to do. I had been celebrating in my own brain that, we were really making progress, but you have given me a true reality check, as so many others. And like you said, there's still more work to do. So I'm glad that you were here to share this information. Of course, want to thank AARP for sponsoring this segment. And we look forward to, maybe the next time we get together, December of 2024, we will see some difference.
This is 23. Don't speed up time that much.
Say that. Oh, no. Well, yeah. But I mean, if we don't talk about this, in a year from now, if we talk about the survey or the study again, we want to be able to say that the needle has moved a little bit more in the positive direction. So, but if we can do it sooner, that would be great.
It would be. Absolutely.
All righty, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate the information. Hopefully folks will go out and take a look at that study. And particularly those who are in the other stakeholders, organizations who involved in keeping our communities healthy will take a look at this as well. So Thank you very much for joining us. Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
And happy birthday to you, Dr. King.
Thank you so much.
All right. All right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
So we're going to kind of stay on this conversation here about healthy communities and how we can the work that needs to be done to make sure that our communities are healthier. We talked a little bit. Lewis mentioned women in households who may not even take care of their own health, mothers, because they are mothers. They have children. They hopefully make their children the priority with looking into their health. We still have some issues with that. And so I'm really honored to bring on Dr. Willie J. Greer-Kimmons, an author, a former classroom teacher, superintendent of schools, former college professor, college president, college chancellor, public servant, community leader, Vietnam veteran. I don't know if I want to keep going, but you can bring in the rest. But he's also has been with Save Children, Save Schools Incorporated. But really important to us today is the fact that he has authored a book, a parenting guide, that I think would be probably a great tool for every household. Dr. Greer-Kimmons, thank you so much for joining us today. So we don't have any sound. Can you check to make sure you're not on mute? All right, want to try it again? Nope, we're not hearing you, unfortunately. What I'm going to ask you to do, Dr. Greer-Kimmons, if you can just, exit and then come back in again, if that works for you, because we definitely want to have this conversation and to try to make sure that we can get you connected. As I said, we actually do a quarterly health, wellness, and nutrition supplement in the Washington Informer 4 times a year. This is my commercial. And we do one, and we just produced one this week in the Informer. We try to look at some of the issues. I mean, in August, our focus was on pediatric care, because sometimes we think if it were not for the requirement that our children have to have their immunizations at the beginning of the school year, which has always been quite a chore for DC public schools, so much so that they've even threatened, and I hate to use that word, but that's what they've done, threatened to prohibit children from coming to school if they don't have those immunizations. Whereas, some folks find that it's important just to make sure that, that the children go and get their eyes checked, their ears checked, to make sure they're physically okay, to have that annual physical with their doctor, to make sure that they can have a healthy school year. That was our issue in August. And you all may have heard the horrendous story a couple years back, where there was a young child who was suffering from severe teeth decay. And the mother just could not afford to take the child to the dentist. Now, I can't imagine any dentist in the DMV who would not have seen that child had that child been presented to them, despite the fact that the mother may not have been able to pay for it. And if that doctor exists, we need to talk about them. But long story short, the child died due to tooth decay. So I mean, parents play such a critical role. Dr. Greer-Kimmons, you're back. Can we hear you now? We are still having problems with the sound. And so we're going to try to work on this a little bit more. I don't want to lose you. And because, again, this is very, very critical. And, the other thing, too, is Dr. Greer-Kimmons' book, I'm sure is going to shares, is just how important it is. Parents, are responsible for their children. And, not only taking your child, I would say, to get their physical, making sure that, all of their bodily functions are functioning properly, to make sure that they're in the best way that you can. And we know we are sometimes deprived of resources and what have you, but, to make sure that your child is being fed properly, to make sure that they are in school. Those are the ways that we show our children how much we love them. They may not always appreciate it, but we are showing them that we love them and we appreciate them, and we want only the best for them. And so we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that they are in healthy situations and that we care. So I'm sure Dr. Kimmon's book actually addresses that, and so many other issues that we haven't really thought about. So if we can't get him back on today, we are definitely going to have him back on WIN TV because we do want to share the information that he has with us. And he was formerly a professor or a dean over at the University of the District of Columbia, if I didn't mention that. He has roots in the District of Columbia, as well as in colleges and universities across the country. So he knows our community. And I did have the opportunity to meet him in Jacksonville, Florida, when the Association for the Study of African American Life and History had their conference there. And so it was really, really good to hear and to get a copy of the book. I don't have it in front of me now. And he proudly shares that he is, I think, the nephew of a former Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, who we all loved and adored. Is the first, one of the first African American women to join the Congressional Black Caucus back in the 70s. So we're trying to work on that. But what we may do right now is to move on with our next guest, who I hope he will give me some special whatever, because I wore my Christmas earrings today. And because we are in the holiday spirit, we are talking about Christmas. And no matter what you do, I mean, children love, no matter what you believe in, but children love the opportunity to meet Santa Claus. That's one of the things that gives our children hope and excitement at this holiday year. There's nothing like seeing a child smile and get excited and tell Santa all of the things they want. And we're hearing sometimes Santa gets to hear a little bit more than he plans on hearing, because he becomes the counselor for the children, who he's trying to make sure that they stay nice and not naughty. So is the Southeast Santa available? Is he here yet? Has his sleigh landed? There he is.
Hello there, Denise. How are you?
Oh, well, I am doing so wonderful here in Southeast Santa. I just don't, I haven't sat on a Santa Claus lap since I was probably 7 years old. And that's probably around the age when children really still do believe in you. So how did you happen to become the Southeast Santa?
Well, let me say that there was a whole lot of people saying they couldn't get to the mall and they needed a Santa Claus. And then there was this guy, and the hosts were all talking about him this morning. That guy, Philip Pennell, has gotten me into all this mess. he just kept pushing, and here I am. Everybody wants to see Santa now. So from the beginning of December throughout the rest of December, I am in high demand to try to figure out how I get the elves in line and don't get the deer mad with me.
Well, I want all the little people who are listening to close your ears, because I want folks to know that the man behind Santa actually is Stuart Anderson, a real hero in Southeast in the Ward 8 community. But at this time of year, he is the Southeast Santa.
Oh, that's correct.
So tell us now, where have you appeared so far, Santa?
So far, I have been all over the place. They dubbed the park right there at the corner of Knox and Alabama, and they dubbed the park the Young Memorial Park. And so it was so frustrating. When I popped up on the corner, they didn't see me. They were all across there in the park, and they looked over and they almost ran into traffic. It's just so amazing. The kid, it took me 10 minutes to get from one side of Alabama to the other.
Wow.
And kept saying, hold up, watch out, don't do this, And we went over and they had a huge cheer, and there was so many children, and we had a wonderful time there. That was earlier in the month. Then we went and we had Congress Heights. The Go-Go Santa piece is always big. We ride around parts of the city, southeast predominantly. Normally we stay east of the Anacostia River. This year we started over in the new Ward 8. We traveled through some of that and came on back over this side. And the children run up to the flatbed and the music is playing and the gifts are being given out. And I just love it. After that, we had a couple tree lightings. Unfortunately, our Christmas caroling had to be rescheduled. It was rained out. Santa was there and ready. The weather doesn't bother us. Me, the deer, and the elves complain, but, they get a whole year off almost.
That's right.
You can't complain.
Well, the deer do, but the elves are constantly getting those letters and then getting those gifts and wrapping them up so that they can pack them into your back.
Some of them elves have been really naughty, right?
Uh-oh.
They're really naughty. I'm finding letters all year long. I'm like, what is this? How do we miss these kids? Why put them at the top of the list for next year?
Wonderful. So, and so where are you going to be coming up, Santa?
So Saturday morning, we're going to go down to the convention center downtown, and we're going to entertain some children in a Wonderland extravaganza put on by the city. And we'll be there. Santa will be there. A few deer might be in the room. I don't know. But a couple elves, they'll help me out. I got to watch out for that Grinch guy, though. That Grinch keeps popping up everywhere.
Oh, wow.
But we'll do that. And then there'll be photos with Santa at a church on Sunday. And then there's a Santa kind of Jubilee piece that we're doing for the council member on the 20th. So we're busy going all the way into this thing.
Sounds like it. So Santa, do you still get a chance to talk to the kids, and do they tell you what they want?
Do I get to talk to them? Man, we did the Go-Go Santa. At the end of the Go-Go Santa, I'm supposed to go to the furlong tree lighting, but I got stuck at this new place they got over here in Southeast, the Sycamore and Oaks. They had a huge old kind of evergreen chair. I'm in the chair. I couldn't get out the chair. I was stuck. It was too many children. It reminded me of the 24th when I go out. And so they just kept coming, and so I sat on my leg and they tell me everything. They whisper me. They tell me everything. Now they got gifts and they got stories, why they need what they need. And, sometimes I know their names. They be really surprised when I come up with their names.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What has there been anything, Santa, that you just thought, wow, it's going to be hard for me to pull this one off that they asked for? I mean, I know cars, trucks, clothes, shoes, what have you, but is there anything you've heard one of the kids say that you were like,
Well, let me say, she was rather big. I think she was a little more than a kid, and she had a wish list around the corner. And so she wants an electric car and some other stuff. But for the little ones, they're always kind of reasonable. These PS5 things, the elves having problems making enough.
Oh, really?
Everybody wants the PS5s.
Those are the games, right?
Yes, the little games. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Then they got these desks that somebody has publicized, and that's what happens. But they gotta have the fancy desk with the decorative stuff on it. They gotta plug it in so it lights up. I'm like, oh, okay. And so, so those kinds of things. We of course we get a lot of requests from the little girls about different types of dolls and doll houses and things like that. Cell phones and earpods and
Yeah, Santa, we've come through some difficult times, COVID, all kinds of, I mean, things that really, we talk about the mental health of our children, right? But this is a time when we really get to see children smile. But what advice would you have for parents to keep the joy of Christmas alive?
Well, there are competing ideas about Christmas and things of that nature. And some parents, they don't want to talk about Santa Claus and things of that nature. But with the state of affairs and traumatic stuff that's going on, sometimes you just need these good stories to help us smile, to help us be happy in the midst of some stuff. Earlier, I heard you guys, I watched the show. I watched the show a lot.
Oh, thank you.
And
like an extra gift.
talk about losing our sports teams and things that, our kids pay attention to this stuff too, because these are the things that inspire them to want to be.
Right.
And so it's important that parents, connect children to ideas and stories that generate hope and promise for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a little kid, the children there, they're like the parents. We're in Southeast. We're predominantly people of color, Black, African American, and what have you. And so, parents are they're jubilated. They're really happy. Oh, I can take them to see this Black Santa Claus, and he's funny too sometimes, right? But the kids, they'll be like, "Are you Santa for real?" Be like, "Yeah, I'm Santa. What do you mean, my Santa for real? Here, pinch me." Ouch. Yeah, see, I'm real. Are you real? And so it is a fun game because they're so excited to see a Black Santa Claus.
So we always say that we should leave Santa a little something when he comes to our house. Not all of us have chimneys anymore, so I don't know how you get in. I never could figure that out. But the tradition has been cookies and milk. But does Santa like that, or is that fine, or what?
I tell him all the time, right? Make sure you got oatmeal raisin, right? Oatmeal raisin, with or without the milk, the oatmeal raisins. Santa's kind of fond of that. And then they say, "Well, Santa, if everybody brings you oatmeal and raisins, what do you do with them?" I said, "I eat them." "What do you mean what I do with them?" "I eat them. I just, and now and then I give a deer one or two, Yes. So it's really fun to be able to sit down and joke with the children, and they ask me about the chimney thing. I'm Southeast Santa, straight out of Southeast. You know what I'm saying? It's not a lot of chimneys to worry about.
Right.
I just tell the kid, make sure you leave the window open downstairs so Santa can get in.
Oh, okay.
But they ask me, they say, "We don't have no chimney, Santa. How you gonna get in?" I said, "I need your help. You gotta help me." And they're so happy to help me. They just like, "Oh, okay. What time you gonna come?" I'd be like, "I can't tell you what time I'm gonna come. You'll see all the magic."
Right.
Yeah.
So, we all know about the reindeer. We even have a song for Rudolph, right?
Yeah.
But is Rudolph still your favorite reindeer? I mean, he's the only one that had the little shiny nose, but talk about those reindeer and the elves. I mean, I don't know if you have any, all we hear is the elves.
So nobody talks about the elves. They do. Let's make sure that the reindeer not listening. The elves do more work than the reindeer do. Rudolph was really important in a season. It's not always that I really need Rudolph out front. We've had some clear skies. If you think back over the last few years, hasn't been no blizzards and things of that nature. And so that's when Rudolph is really, really important,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and now that he's begun to play with the other deer and they done got big and they've grown up and they've been around a while, he's feeling okay. He's not depressed or anything. So he knows that, they're all kind of the same, because if I start talking about I like Dancer better than Prancer or Donald or Blitzen, then, then they be like, "Okay, I'm not pulling this sled." And so we got to figure out how we're going to get all over the place. And what you guys see is one night, but you know how time kind of goes back, right?
Yeah.
And so it kind of stands still. So on the 24th, it stands still for me. And that's how I'm able to get everywhere.
That is I mean, Santa, I am so thrilled that you were able to take a few minutes out, to spend time with us, and that you are actually the Southeast Santa, so this isn't so much of a long distance call, although I know you have to go to the North Pole where all those gifts are. Is that, how long a trip is that?
So I got this bell, right?
Uh-huh.
And I ring the bell and it did come. I don't know what I did. The little kid tried to run off with the bell. I said, don't do that. I can't get back. You're going to mess Christmas up. What, you working with the Grinch? Come on, ring the bell back. So these deer, they fast. They are really, really fast. They move real fast. And once I say, come down, I go blitzing, on dash it, come Cupid. Man, they start, I got to hold my hat. Tell them, slow up. Wait a minute. So it's not a long trip for a sleigh and pulled by these magical deer who move like grease lightning.
So when you ask the kids whether they've been naughty or nice,
oh my goodness.
What kind of responses do you get?
Some of the responses you get, but you know what's more important than what comes out of their mouth? The expressions on their faces, right? So I said, hello there, Tommy. How are you? Jamal, have you been naughty or nice? And he's sitting on my lap, right? And imagine me sitting on Santa's lap, and he does like this. He looks at his mother. He's like, what are you looking at her for? And he looks at me like, oh, well, he doesn't say anything. Just give you those little rolling eyes like, oh, well, Santa, And then some of the little girls, they say a little both. I'd be like, okay, you got to do better. Okay. That's all they say is okay.
Yeah. But do they think you're watching them all year long?
And that's the key. That's the key, is to put in their minds that somebody is watching them all the time, and they think about it during the course of their day all the time. And I said, I saw you when you and the little girl was arguing in school. And then they just like, what? I don't know. I just, made that up. Don't tell nobody, but, I trick them into, believing that I see them. And that helps throughout the year.
Well, Santa, as I said, I want to thank you so much for being with us today, for spreading your Christmas joy on Let's Talk here on WIN TV. We know that you have a busy season ahead of you, a busy day and weekend ahead of you.
Man,
so, just you staying healthy? You
well, I heard you talking about that stuff, and I was going to say, we got to do a special edition for our senior people, We need to be reminded of some health tips every now and then. So I'm glad that you do the quarterly pieces. It's good. I read. I told you I watch the show and I read.
Yeah.
That's it. So yeah. So I'm drinking me some tea and eating me some green stuff and watching my sugar.
Oh, good. Okay, that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. Santa, thank you so much for being with us. Can you close us out with your wonderful?
Of course I can do it. Merry Christmas to each and every one, and a Happy New Year. I'll see you in your living rooms.
Thank you, Santa. Wow, that was really special. We don't always get to get real popular people like Santa Claus and so many others. So we're glad that you were with us. Thank you so much. Of course, our loyal viewers, James Wright, Michael Lassiter, my mom, Vera Abbott, and Robert Simmons III. Thank you for joining us. Make sure, and Dan, thank you. We hope that you will join us next week, same time, 12 to 1. Share this program. It will still be on YouTube and Facebook and IG and some of the other channels. So when it drops and is recorded, you can actually share this with your friends and like the program. That if you really do like it, we ask you to do that as well. I want you to have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Stay safe. I don't know about you, but we're going to be seeing The Color Purple in a couple of days. So maybe we'll have a little conversation about that as well for those who've had a chance to go to these early screenings, but you want to check that out as well. But most importantly, take care of yourself, stay healthy, drink plenty of water, get rest. Don't imbibe too much during the holidays, but make sure that you have a great and enjoyable holiday. Spend time with family and friends, and we include you among our family and our friends. This is Denise Rollard Barnes saying so long.